Welcome to the Dark Ozarks. We are talking about the lore of winter, including the dark tales that they don't cover in the holiday movies.
Now, these are the celebrations of the dead, the testing of men through the bleak months of winter, and if one is not careful, sacrifice and danger.
We'll be right back to all of the dark shades of winter in a minute. We want to let you know where you can find us in person in the next few weeks. You can purchase tickets for all of our events at paranormalsciencelab.com.
First off, we want to give a huge thank you to everyone who came out to the Ritchie Mansion in Newtonian, Missouri this past Saturday. That was a huge turnout that helps to preserve history.
And then, looking forward on November 19th, we have two events. First, in the afternoon, we'll be at Always Buying Books in Joplin, Missouri, signing books and talking about everything in the Dark Ozarks, and it's free.
And then the night of November 19th, we will be doing a tour and paranormal investigation of the Webb City Public Library.
Find all the details for the events at paranormalsciencelab.com, and Dark Ozarks T-shirts are now for sale at darkozarks.com and paranormalsciencelab.com.
And I like yours. It looks great.
Thank you.
So what is the most shocking thing about the winter tales from lore and these old beliefs?
I don't know, celebrating the dead, the risk of death yourself, that Santa Claus was really a shaman, or that he may have a dark counterpart, evil twin, if you will.
That might be too many possible answers, but we're going to tell you our favorites later in the show.
Let's start as soon as we give a shout out to our great sponsors that help us bring the Dark Ozarks to everybody.
We encourage everyone to check out Always Buying Books in Joplin, Missouri, in person and online on Facebook, and their website, alwaysbuyingbooks.com, for all of your reading needs, including a large section on the paranormal, history, and more, not to mention The Building is Haunted. Tell Bob and Elise we sent you.
We also want to thank Beard Engine Brewing Company in Alba, Missouri. Beard Engine Brewing is the only English-style brewery in Missouri and twice named Missouri's best brewery by the Missouri Brewers Association. Great beer and food in a historical building with a noir past, and yes, it's also haunted. Tell Nate and Tiff that we sent you.
So Halloween is, of course, filled with lore about concealing yourself from the spirits of the dead. So when do we go from that to celebrating the dead? Now, the old beliefs about winter really start with the day after Halloween.
Yes. November 2nd is All Hallows Tide, which sums it up, and also known as All Souls Day for those in purgatory, for those in the Christian belief. This follows November 1st, which is All Hallows Day, right after All Hallows Halloween on the eve. It's also All Saints Day. But the ideas predate Christianity, and in the past, there was a much closer connection to the living.
So after this harvest season, what we're looking at is remembrance. We're looking at contemplation. Interestingly enough, we're also looking at our own uneasy relationships with the dead.
That's right. I mean, you really do go from rituals of hiding yourself from the dead to basically doing everything we can to keep them at bay for the rest of winter.
It's very nuanced. It's very complex, really. And it's a lot more complex than what I think at times we're comfortable with in modern society. So much of modernism, to me anyway, is about breaking down the nuance, breaking down the complexity, making things very simple, fitting them in simple shapes, simple boxes, simple cubes. And then if something doesn't fit, then simply ignoring it, or of course, telling the individuals who don't fit into those boxes that they're crazy, they don't understand what it is that they saw, they don't understand what it is they experienced, etc. We've spoken to so many people who have had experiences that don't fit into those boxes, and oftentimes less so now, I think, with the rise of paranormal shows and popularity of that, but in the past have been largely ostracized by modern society. I really just keep coming back to a phrase that really jumps out to me, which is that the uneasy relationship with the dead.
And I think that sums it up really well, because we're fascinated. We want to venerate our ancestors, but we're not real comfortable with it by and large. And it's interesting you bring up the nuances with the recent paranormal shows and so forth. And I think that's very true, but it kind of almost brings in almost a new layer of that complexity of uneasiness that basically has been repackaged from what made us uneasy 1,000 years ago is just looks different than what it does now. And that's reflected a lot by those shows. And I'm not really sure which is the chicken and the egg there.
It's difficult to really parse a lot of that out. But what's not difficult from my perspective to recognize is that as society has gotten more secular and more modern, there is an expectation of sanitization.
Yeah.
From the old ways, from traditions that, quite frankly, are considered emotional, visceral, messy, difficult. Death has been sanitized to such a large degree in modern society. Birth has been sanitized to such a large degree in modern society. These things happen away from the family or away from a common experience. It is separated, is hermetically sealed into its own places. And whereas, and you know, I think for both of us, growing up in rural America, growing up on farms, even if you weren't experiencing life and death of human beings, you were constantly experiencing life, death, the cycle of regeneration, the cycle of birth and rebirth, the seasons, all of these things on a daily basis with animals, with livestock, with crops, with all of this. And so much of that has been separated away.
Very much so.
And you can see on a superficial level, you can see why. It's emotional. It is messy. It is difficult at times to deal with. Speaking as an individual who has gone through these processes with animals many times, and you think, my gosh, if you could just have this be easier, or have this be more sanitized, or have somebody else do it for you, wouldn't that be great? But the downfall of that is that it separates us from the natural rhythm, even of ourselves, and it creates an uneasiness with what I would consider the larger and elemental energies of the universe.
And that was very, very well illustrated when I was growing up, when we had visitors that were not used to a farm setting, and something would happen while they were there. One incident in particular comes to mind of a kid that I knew that all of this was just completely new and unfamiliar, and there was a discussion about where hamburger comes from, and just serious as a heart attack. Well, they make it at the grocery store, and and my dad proceeded to enlighten them to their abject horror as blood drained from their face. I'm not sure if they're a vegetarian now or not, but it's a good illustration of how we over time get separated from, as you said, these rhythms of ourselves and life, and our practices and our beliefs that have gone on for thousands of years. And it's not necessarily a positive thing in all aspects. Now we're going to go into a lot more of that in the long version, and for those of you looking for the longer version, it will be uploaded here on YouTube tomorrow night. But don't forget to check out upcoming events at paranormalsciencelab.com. Thank you again to Always Buying Books and Beard Engine Brewing Company for helping bring the Dark Ozarks to everyone.
And on the next episode, we're going to be discussing what's scary. This is our send-off to Halloween. And so we ask you to tell us what you think is scary in the Ozarks, now or in the past, paranormal or not paranormal. And we thank everyone. And remember, there are no easy answers,